The smell of bleach and dirty dishes assaulted my nose as I stood in the doorway of the industrial kitchen, watching my twins, Alex and Sophie, perched on overturned buckets next to the dishwashing station, their plates balanced precariously on a metal prep table, while around them, kitchen staff worked frantically during the dinner rush. The dining room is fully booked, Isabella Romano had announced when we arrived for what was supposed to be a celebratory dinner for the twins' school awards. Her lips curved into a practiced smile. This is the only space available, unless you prefer to come back another time. She knew very well we couldn't get another reservation. Her restaurant, the Golden Laurel, had a 6-month waiting list. Not that she'd ever let us book a proper table anyway. "Mama," Sophie whispered, trying to cut her Wagyu beef with a plastic fork, "why can't we eat with the other people?" Isabella's voice cut through the kitchen noise like a sharp knife. "Well, dear, perhaps if your mother had taught you proper etiquette instead of letting you eat like savages, you could dine in civilized company. 6 years of these digs about my parenting, my background, my very existence. 6 years of watching her treat my children as if they were somehow contaminating her precious restaurant's reputation. They eat like untrained puppies," I'd once overheard her telling a food critic. "But what can you expect? Their mother probably thinks fine dining means extra ketchup." Alex tugged at my sleeve. "The dishwasher is splashing my food. Just eat quickly, sweetheart." I helped him move his plate away from the spray. "We need to be ready for the reopening ceremony." "Ready to serve, you mean," Isabella muttered, adjusting her pristine chef's coat. "Do try to keep them from touching anything important. They're not used to quality." The way she said quality made it sound like a private club my family could never join. "They'll be fine," I said firmly. "They know how to behave in a restaurant." "Do they? Public school children tend to be rather unpolished." I bit back my response. Soon, very soon, she would learn exactly what this public school teacher had been up to while she was busy collecting Michelin stars and contempt. "We need to get ready, Isabella," I reminded her. "The reopening ceremony starts in an hour." Her grand reopening, the crowning achievement of her culinary career. The night when all of high society would gather to praise her genius as she unveiled her restaurant's multi-million-dollar renovation. This year would mark her 15th anniversary as executive chef and owner. Yes, she waved dismissively. "Though I don't know why you're attending. The ticket price alone." "Marcus would have wanted us there," I said quietly. That shut her up as it always did. Her precious son, the restaurateur who disappointed her by marrying a teacher, then devastated her by dying and leaving his insurance money to us instead of her. What she didn't know was that Marcus had left us much more than that. "Very well," she sniffed. "But do something about their clothes. I can't have them looking like, well, like what we were. Common, ordinary, beneath her." After she clicked away in her designer clogs, I helped the twins change into their ceremony outfits, custom-made suits that would make Isabella choke if she knew we owned them. "Remember what Daddy used to say?" I asked as I straightened Sophie's bow tie. They nodded in unison. "Good food feeds the stomach, but kindness feeds the soul." "That's right, and tonight we're going to serve up quite a feast." The twins exchanged knowing looks. They'd seen the papers I'd signed last month, had watched me in late-night meetings with the restaurant's investors. They might be 8, but they weren't stupid. "Will Grandma be angry?" Alex asked, fidgeting with his cufflinks. "Grandma will be served a taste of her own cooking," I assured him. Sometimes people need to sample what they've been dishing out to others. At the restaurant's grand dining room, an hour later, Isabella was in her element. She floated between tables, accepting compliments about her culinary genius, her exquisite taste, her 15 years of elevating local cuisine. If only they knew how she really treated those she considered beneath her. "Sarah, darling," she air-kissed my cheeks when we entered. "I'm shocked you could afford the tickets, and the children, well, they clean up adequately." The twins stood straight-backed, their matching outfits probably worth more than Isabella thought I made in a month. She didn't recognize the designer. She'd never expect us to own them. "We wouldn't miss it," I smiled. "Especially not tonight's announcements." Her perfectly groomed eyebrows drew together. "Announcements? The only announcement is my reopening speech." "Oh? The board didn't tell you about the ownership changes?" For a fraction of a second, panic flashed across her Botoxed features. "What ownership changes?" "I'm sure it will all be clear during your speech," I said smoothly. The twins and I have front row seats. Front row? Those are for VIP guests only. Yes, I agreed. They are. Leaving her sputtering, I guided Alex and Sophie to our table, directly in front of the podium where Isabella would soon deliver her speech. The speech she'd spent months preparing, detailing her legacy in fine dining. A legacy that was about to get a new recipe. Mrs. Carter, Thomas, the maitre d', approached with a folder. Everything's prepared for the announcement. Isabella, across the room, watched this exchange with growing confusion. She'd never seen Thomas bring me documents before. Never seen me sign anything official. Never imagined I could. Perfect. I took the folder, and a security footage. Queued up and ready. The twins squeezed my hands under the table. They knew what was coming. We discussed it as a family, just as Marcus and I had planned it before his death. Will we have to eat in the kitchen again? Sophie whispered. No, sweetheart, I promised. After tonight, everyone will eat in the dining room, or no one will. Isabella stepped up to the podium, ready to begin her carefully crafted speech about her dedication to culinary excellence. She had no idea she was about to learn that treating people like kitchen scraps comes with a very bitter aftertaste. Sometimes the best revenge isn't showing people how powerful you are. It's letting them serve themselves their just desserts. Isabella tapped the crystal wine glass, its ring echoing through the elegantly renovated dining room. Behind her, a massive screen waited to display her curated video about the Golden Laurel's journey to excellence. Distinguished guests, she began, her voice dripping with cultivated warmth. Welcome to our grand reopening. As we celebrate 15 years of culinary artistry, right on cue, the screen behind her flickered. Instead of her planned presentation, security footage began playing silently. There she was, forcing my children to eat in the kitchen, her cruel words captioned for all to see. Isabella, focused on her notes, didn't notice at first, but the gasps from the diners made her turn around. What is this? She demanded. Turn that off immediately. Please continue, Isabella. I stood up. Tell us more about your dedication to hospitality. The footage changed to other incidents, Isabella mocking customers who ordered incorrectly, forcing families with children to wait hours for tables that never materialized, making my twins use plastic utensils because they weren't worthy of her fine silverware. This is, she sputtered. Poor service, I suggested, class discrimination, or just another day at the Golden Laurel. The room erupted in whispers. Several food critics stood up, their notebooks already out. I demand to know who authorized this. Isabella's voice cracked. That would be me. I walked to the podium. The new owner of the Golden Laurel. The silence that followed was as thick as her famous bechamel sauce. Isabella's face went from flushed to pale in seconds. Impossible, she breathed. You're nothing. A teacher Marcus married against my wishes. A teacher who helped her husband invest very wisely, I corrected. While you were collecting stars, Isabella, Marcus, and I were collecting something more valuable, proof of how you really treat people. Marcus would never. Marcus did. Every investment, every board appointment, every detail was planned before his death. He just hoped you'd learn compassion on your own first. The twins joined me at the podium, standing tall despite the room's attention. Sophie spoke first. Daddy said good food should make people happy, not scared. Alex added, and he said restaurants are for everyone who loves food, not just rich people. Isabella staggered back as if their words were physical blows. The footage behind her showed her latest cruelty, playing on an endless loop. As the new owner, I continued, I'm making immediate changes. First, the kitchen will no longer be a punishment zone. It will be a place of respect and learning. Several staff members nodded vigorously. Second, any form of discrimination against guests or staff will result in immediate termination. No exceptions. You can't. Isabella started. I can and I am. Your position as executive chef is terminated, effective immediately. However, I paused. You're welcome to apply for our new community cooking program, teaching children from public schools about cuisine. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Some guests actually applauded. Thomas, I called to the maitre d', please escort Chef Romano to her office to collect her personal belongings. Security will supervise. Isabella stood frozen, her culinary empire crumbling around her designer clogs. "Why?" she whispered. "Why humiliate me like this?" "The same reason you humiliated my children, to teach a lesson about dignity." I met her eyes. "The difference is, they didn't deserve their humiliation. You cooked this up yourself." One of her socialite friends tried to intervene. "This is outrageous. Isabella has 3 Michelin stars and 0 stars in humanity." I cut in. "Would you like to see more footage? Perhaps when she made a child cry for ordering pasta well done." The woman sat down quickly. Thomas appeared with a box for Isabella's belongings. "Your keys and recipes, chef." Her hands shook as she removed them from her designer bag. "And if I refuse to leave quietly, then the full security footage goes to every food critic in the country." I smiled. "I'm sure they'd love to review your unique approach to customer service." She sank into a chair, 15 years of superiority finally soaring like spoiled cream. Marcus knew. All this time, he knew what I was becoming. He knew, I confirmed. He just hoped he'd remember that great food should bring people together, not tear them apart. Alex tugged at my sleeve. "Can we eat in the dining room now, Mama? The kitchen smells like soap." "Yes, sweetheart. We'll eat wherever we want." I turned to the assembled guests. "Thank you all for coming. The Golden Laurel's new mission statement and service policies will be distributed shortly. We hope you'll continue dining with us, where everyone is welcome at our table." Behind us, Isabella began gathering her belongings, her perfect world reduced to a cardboard box of recipes that suddenly tasted like ashes. Sometimes the best lessons about hospitality come from those we refused to serve. As we left, Sophie looked back at her grandmother. "Will she be okay, Mama?" "That depends on what she learns from this," I answered honestly. Sometimes people need to lose their stars to find their humanity. And sometimes I thought, watching Isabella clutch her empty recipe book, the most important ingredient in any kitchen isn't skill, it's heart. The transformation of both the Golden Laurel and Isabella Romano over the next 6 months surprised everyone, especially those who had witnessed her fall from culinary grace. Initially, Isabella retreated to her home kitchen, emerging only to criticize our new common approach in food blogs and on social media. But when prestigious cooking shows and food magazines began distancing themselves from her now viral behavior, she found herself facing an unfamiliar taste: irrelevance. The turning point came through, of all things, a failed soufflé. "I need help," she called one evening, her voice missing its usual arrogance. "The children's cooking class at the community center. They want to learn my chocolate soufflé." I could have refused. Part of me wanted to. Instead, I said, "Come tomorrow morning, before service. Show them yourself." The Isabella who arrived at 7 a.m. was barely recognizable. Her chef's coat was plain, her usual perfect makeup absent, and her eyes held something I had never seen before: uncertainty. Our new head chef, Miguel, someone Isabella would once have dismissed as kitchen help, watched her demonstrate the soufflé technique to wide-eyed children. "You have to be gentle," she explained, her hands moving with practiced grace. "Treat the ingredients with respect, like you would treat people." The irony of her words wasn't lost on anyone. What followed was what the staff called the humble pay season. The woman who once wouldn't let common children into her dining room spent weekends teaching kids how to make pasta from scratch and bake their first bread. "Your grandmother showed me how to make macarons today," Sophie told her friends. She didn't even mind when we got flour everywhere. The twins, showing more forgiveness than their grandmother ever had, started spending Saturday mornings in the teaching kitchen. They would experiment with recipes, making glorious messes, while Isabella worked beside them. One day, I overheard Alex ask her, "Why didn't you want us in your restaurant before, Grandma?" Isabella set down her whisk, hands trembling. "Because I forgot the most important ingredient," she admitted softly: love. I was so focused on perfection that I forgot food is about bringing joy, not judgment. "Like Daddy's pancakes?" "Yes," she smiled genuinely. "Your father made the messiest, most imperfect pancakes, but they were made with love, so they tasted better than any Michelin star dish." The real breakthrough came during our first community cooking fair. A young girl brought her family's traditional recipe, not fancy or refined, but full of history. The old Isabella would have sneered. The new Isabella spent hours learning the recipe from her. "This is real cuisine," she said afterward. "Food that tells a story of family and love." Later that evening, as we closed the restaurant, Isabella lingered in the kitchen. "I've been thinking," she said quietly, About my recipes. Oh, yes, I'd like to publish them. Not as a fancy cookbook, but as something accessible, teaching people that good food doesn't have to be exclusive. I studied her face, looking for any trace of her old superiority. Found none. That's a generous offer, I said carefully, but it would mean sharing your precious techniques with common people. But food, like love, grows when you share it, she replied, watching the twins clean up their baking station. I just wish I'd learned that sooner. The twins, who had been pretending not to listen, hugged their grandmother. For the first time ever, Isabella hugged back without worrying about flour on her clothes. Will you teach us all your recipes? Stuffy asked. Better, Isabella smiled. We'll create new ones together, and make plenty of messes along the way. She looked at me uncertainly. If that's allowed. I nodded, watching decades of bitterness melt like chocolate. I think that's exactly what this kitchen needs. As we locked up that night, Alex held up the souffle he had made, slightly lopsided but made with pure joy. Look, Mama, sometimes the imperfect ones taste the best. Yes, I agreed, watching Isabella hang up her plain chest coat next to the kids' aprons. And sometimes people turn out better when they're not trying to be perfect. The restaurant's lights dimmed behind us, but the warmth of the kitchen stayed in our hearts. In the end, it wasn't about Michelin stars or revenge or even fine dining. It was about learning that the best meals aren't served on fine china. They're served with love, acceptance, and maybe a little bit of mess on the side. I stared at the red handprint blooming across my daughter's cheek, the broken strap of her little crossbody bag dangling like a surrender flag. Victoria Blackwood, my mother-in-law, stood in her private showroom, nostrils flaring, still clutching her precious Birkin as if my 9-year-old had tried to steal it rather than simply admire it. You will teach that child to keep her hands to herself. Victoria spat, her perfect French manicure gleaming as she stroked the bag's leather. These are collector's items, not toys for common children to paw at. Lily's tears fell silently. She'd learned early that her grandmother hated noise almost as much as she hated unfortunate breeding, as she called my middle-class background. She barely touched it. I kept my voice level, though my hands shook. She was just looking. Looking leads to touching. Touching leads to wanting, and wanting leads to expectations above one's station. Victoria's voice dripped acid honey. Better she learns now that some things aren't meant for everyone. 5 years of these digs about my background, about my daughter's unfortunate inheritance of my traits rather than her precious son James's elite genetics. 5 years of watching her treat my child like an unwanted intruder in her pristine world of luxury retail. Children shouldn't be around valuable items, I'd once overheard her telling a client. Especially children without proper breeding. They don't understand the value of things. Lily clutched her broken bag closer, the designer logo now split down the middle. It was her pride and joy, bought with her own allowance savings, though Victoria didn't know that. She assumed I picked it up at some discount store. I can fix it, Lily whispered, fingering the tear. Hardly, Victoria sniffed. Quality items require quality care. Not that you'd understand, given your background. I bit back my response. Soon, very soon, she would learn exactly what this public school teacher had been doing while she was busy collecting handbags and contempt. We need to go, Victoria, I reminded her. The boutique's anniversary celebration starts in 2 hours. Her 25th anniversary gala, the crown jewel of the luxury retail calendar in our city. The night when all of high society gathered to praise her exquisite taste and exclusive collections. This year marked her silver jubilee as owner. Yes, she waved dismissively. Though I don't know why you're attending. The guest list is rather selective. James would have wanted us there, I said quietly. That shut her up, as it always did. Her precious son, the surgeon who disappointed her by marrying a teacher, then devastated her by dying and leaving his inheritance to us instead of her. What she didn't know was that James had left us much more than money. Very well, she sniffed. But do something about that child's appearance. I can't have her looking like what we were. Common, ordinary, beneath her. After she clicked away in her Louboutins, I helped Lily change into her gala outfit, a designer piece that would make Victoria choke if she knew we owned it. Remember what Daddy used to say? I asked as I dried her tears. Money can buy nice things, but it can't buy class, she recited softly. That's right, and tonight, we're going to see who really has class. Lily gave me a knowing look. She'd seen the papers I'd signed last month, had watched me in late-night meetings with the boutique's board of directors. She might be 9, but she wasn't blind to what was coming. "Will Grandma be mad?" she asked, touching her bruised cheek. "Grandma will be educated," I assured her. Sometimes people need to learn important lessons about value. At the boutique's grand showroom 2 hours later, Victoria was holding court. She floated between social clusters, accepting compliments about her impeccable taste, her exclusive collections, her 25 years of elevating local fashion. If only they knew how she really treated people she considered beneath her. "Sarah, darling," she air-kissed my cheeks when we arrived. "I'm shocked you made the guest list. And Lily, well, at least the bruise isn't too visible." Lily stood straight-backed, her outfit probably worth more than Victoria thought I made in a year. She didn't recognize the brand. She'd never expect us to own it. "We wouldn't miss it," I smiled. "Especially not tonight's announcements." Her perfectly threaded eyebrows drew together. "Announcements? The only announcement is my anniversary speech." "Oh? The board didn't tell you about the ownership transition?" For a fraction of a second, panic flashed across her Botoxed features. "What ownership transition?" "I'm sure it will all be clear during your speech," I said smoothly. "Lily and I have front row seats." "Front row? Those are for VIP clients only." "Yes," I agreed. "They are." Leaving her sputtering, I guided Lily to our table, directly in front of the podium where Victoria would soon deliver her speech. The speech she'd spent months preparing, detailing her legacy in luxury retail. A legacy that was about to undergo a dramatic makeover. Mrs. Blackwood, Marcus, the board secretary, approached with a folder. "Everything's prepared for the announcement." Victoria, across the room, watched this exchange with growing confusion. She'd never seen Marcus bring me documents before, never seen me sign anything official, never imagined I could. "Perfect," I said, taking the folder. "And the security footage?" "Queued up and ready." Lily squeezed my hand under the table. She knew what was coming. We discussed it as a family, just as James and I had planned it before his death. "Would she hit me again?" she whispered. "No, sweetheart," I promised. "After tonight, she won't be hitting anyone ever again." Victoria stepped up to the podium, ready to begin her carefully crafted speech about her dedication to luxury and exclusivity. She had no idea she was about to learn that treating people like they're worthless comes with a very high price tag. Sometimes the best revenge isn't showing people how powerful you are, it's letting them show everyone who they really are first. Victoria tapped the crystal podium, her diamond rings catching the light as she surveyed her audience of elite clients and socialites. Behind her, a massive screen waited to display her curated slideshow of 25 years of excellence in luxury retail. "Distinguished guests," she began, her voice dripping with cultivated sophistication. "Welcome to our Silver Jubilee celebration. As we commemorate 25 years of my dedication to bringing only the finest luxury goods." Right on cue, the screen behind her flickered. Instead of her planned presentation, security footage began playing silently. There she was slapping my daughter, her venomous words captioned for all to see. Victoria, focused on her note cards, didn't notice at first, but the horrified gasps from the audience made her turn around. "What is this?" she demanded. "Turn that off immediately." "Please continue, Victoria." I stood up. "Tell us more about your dedication to fine things and finer people." The footage changed to other incidents, Victoria mocking customers she deemed too common to shop in her store, forcing staff to follow people she thought looked poor, making my daughter use the service entrance because she wasn't refined enough for the main door. This is," she sputtered. "Child abuse," I suggested. "Class discrimination? Or just another day at your exclusive boutique?" The room erupted in whispers. Several VIP clients stood up, their faces flushed with anger. "I demand to know who authorized this." Victoria's voice cracked. "That would be me." I walked to the podium, the new owner of Lux Avenue Boutique. The silence that followed was absolute. Victoria's face went from rosy to ashen in seconds. "Impossible," she breathed. "You're nothing." "A teacher James married against my wishes." "A teacher who helped her husband invest very wisely," I corrected. "While you were collecting handbags, Victoria, James, and I were collecting something far more valuable, evidence of your true character." James would never. James did. Every share purchase, every board appointment, every detail was planned before his death. He just hoped you'd learn humanity on your own first. Lily joined me at the podium, her cheeks still bearing a faint red mark. Daddy said true luxury isn't about what you own, she said clearly. It's about how you treat people. Victoria staggered back as if Lily's words had physically struck her. The footage behind her showed her latest cruelty, playing on an endless loop. As the new owner, I continued, I'm making immediate changes. First, this boutique will serve anyone who can afford our products, regardless of their background. Several board members nodded approvingly. Second, any form of discrimination or abuse will result in immediate termination. No exceptions. You can't. Victoria started. I can, and I am. Your position here is terminated, effective immediately. And your private collection? I smiled. It's being donated to a fashion museum in the public school district. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Some clients actually applauded. Marcus, I called to the board secretary. Please escort Mrs. Blackwood to her office to collect her personal belongings. Security will supervise. Victoria stood frozen, her perfectly curated world crashing around her designer heels. Why'd she whispered? Why humiliate me like this? The same reason you humiliated my daughter, to teach a lesson about worth. I met her eyes. The difference is, she didn't deserve her humiliation. You earned yours. One of her socialite friends tried to intervene. This is outrageous. Victoria has given 25 years of abuse and discrimination. I cut in. Would you like to see more footage? Perhaps when she told a cancer survivor her headscarf wasn't boutique appropriate. The woman sat down quickly. Marcus appeared with a box for Victoria's belongings. Your keys and security pass, Mrs. Blackwood. Her hands shook as she removed them from her Birkin. And if I refuse to leave quietly, then the full security footage goes to every media outlet in the city, I smiled. I'm sure they'd love to hear about your innovative customer service approach. She sank into a chair, 25 years of superiority finally crumbling. James knew. All this time, he knew what I was. He knew, I confirmed. He just hoped you'd remember that true value isn't in what you sell. It's in how you treat people. Lily touched her broken bag. Can we fix my bag now, Mama? The real one, not the one Grandma thinks I have. Yes, sweetheart, we'll fix everything. I turned to the assembled guests. Thank you all for coming. The boutique's new mission statement and client policies will be distributed shortly. We hope you'll continue shopping with us, where everyone is welcome, regardless of their background. Behind us, Victoria began gathering her belongings, her perfect world reduced to a cardboard box of luxury catalogs and framed awards that suddenly meant nothing. Sometimes the best lessons about worth come from those we treated as worthless. As we left, Lily looked back at her grandmother. Will she be okay, Mama? That depends on what she learns from this, I answered honestly. Sometimes people need to lose everything to understand what really matters. And sometimes I thought, watching Victoria clutch her empty Birkin bag, the most expensive lesson is the one that teaches us we're worth more than the price tags we wear. The transformation of both Lux Avenue and Victoria Blackwood over the next 6 months surprised everyone, especially those who'd watched her fall from grace. Initially, Victoria retreated to her mansion, emerging only to shop at competing boutiques where she'd loudly criticize our new common approach. But when those stores, fearing association with her now viral behavior, began politely turning her away, she found herself facing an unfamiliar reality: exclusion. The turning point came through, of all things, a damaged handbag. I need help, she called one evening, her voice missing its usual imperial tone. My vintage bag is torn, and no other boutique will touch it. I could have turned her away. Part of me wanted to. Instead, I said, bring it in. Our new restoration specialist is excellent. The Victoria who arrived after hours was barely recognizable. Her designer outfit was wrinkled, her makeup imperfect, and her eyes held something I'd never seen before: desperation. Our restoration specialist, Maria, someone Victoria would once have dismissed as the help, examined the bag with expert hands. I can fix this, Maria said, but it will take time and special care. I'll pay anything. Victoria reached for her wallet. Actually, I interrupted, we have a new program. People can learn restoration skills in exchange for services. Learn? You mean work here? She looked around the boutique she'd once ruled, now transformed into a welcoming space where luxury met accessibility. With the public, handle beautiful things. Learn to restore them. Share your knowledge. I held her gaze. Your choice. Something shifted in her perfectly maintained facade. I know quite a bit about vintage pieces. What followed was what the staff called the education of Victoria Blackwood. The woman who once wouldn't let common people touch her merchandise spent weeks learning restoration techniques alongside people she previously snubbed. Your grandmother actually helped me today, Maria told Lily. She knows amazing things about vintage bags. And she smiled, a real smile. Lily, showing more grace than her grandmother ever had, started visiting the boutique's restoration workshop after school. She'd watch the repairs, learning about craftsmanship, while Victoria worked nearby. One day, I overheard Lily ask her, "Why did you hit me, Grandma?" Victoria set down her tools, hands trembling. "Because I was afraid," she admitted softly. "Afraid that if people like you could have nice things, they wouldn't be special anymore. I was wrong. So wrong. About the bags. About everything." She touched Lily's cheek gently. "The things I valued weren't what made me special. They just made me mean." The real breakthrough came during our first public restoration workshop. A young woman brought in her mother's worn handbag, not designer, but deeply loved. The old Victoria would have sneered. The new Victoria spent hours teaching her how to restore it. "The love in that bag is worth more than any logo," she said afterward, watching a woman leave clutching her restored treasure. Later that evening, as we closed up, Victoria lingered behind. "I've been thinking," she said quietly, "about my collection." "Oh, yes, I'd like to use it differently, for teaching, showing people how to appreciate and care for beautiful things, regardless of their price tag." I studied her face, looking for any trace of her old superiority. Found none. "That's a generous offer," I said carefully, "but it would mean sharing your precious pieces with common people." "Beauty isn't common or uncommon," she replied, catching a restored vintage clutch. "It's just beautiful, like my granddaughter's smile." Lily, who'd been pretending not to listen, hugged her grandmother. For the first time ever, Victoria hugged back without checking if her clothes would wrinkle. "Does this mean you'll teach me about bags too?" Lily asked. "Better," Victoria smiled. "I'll teach you about value, real value." She looked at me uncertainly. If that's allowed." I nodded, watching decades of barriers dissolve. "I think that's exactly what this place needs." As we locked up that night, Lily held up her restored bag, the one Victoria had broken months ago. "Look, Mama, sometimes broken things come back stronger." "Yes," I agreed, watching Victoria gather her tools rather than her status symbols. "And sometimes people do too." The boutique's lights dimmed behind us, but the future gleamed brighter than any designer logo ever could. In the end, it wasn't about handbags or status or even revenge. It was about learning that true luxury isn't what you own. It's who you become when no one's watching your labels. The smell of cat litter burned my nostrils as I stood in the doorway of what my mother-in-law, Regina Montgomery, called the auxiliary pet quarter. What it actually was, a converted storage room where she kept 12 litter boxes for her precious show cats, and where my twins, Emma and Ethan, were currently trying to lay out their sleeping bags. "The guest rooms are being renovated," Regina had announced when we arrived for what was supposed to be a weekend stay during our house's fumigation. Her lips curved into what passed for a smile. "This is the only space available, unless you prefer a hotel." She knew very well we couldn't afford a hotel, or rather, she thought we couldn't. My late husband Michael's struggling teacher wife wasn't supposed to have the means for anything beyond basic necessities. "Mama," Emma whispered, her voice trembling, "it smells really bad." Regina's voice cut through the air like a steel blade. "Well, dear, perhaps if your mother had married more appropriately, you wouldn't have to smell it. But here we are." 7 years of these digs about my profession, my background, my existence. 7 years of watching her treat my children like unwanted strays at her precious animal shelter. "The cats are better bred than they are," I'd once overheard her telling a shelter donor. "At least my Persian has a pedigree." Ethan tugged at my sleeve. "Can't we go home?" "The fumigation won't be done until Monday, sweetheart." I helped him spread out his sleeping bag, trying to find a spot away from the litter boxes. "Just 2 nights." 2 nights too many," Regina muttered, adjusting her designer suit. Do try not to disturb the cats. They're not used to children. The way she said children made it sound like a communicable disease. They'll be fine, I said firmly. They know how to behave around animals. Do they? Public school children tend to be rather rough. I bit back my response. Soon, very soon, she would learn exactly what this public school teacher had been up to while she was busy breeding cats and condescension. We have to go, Regina, I reminded her. The shelter's donor gala starts in 2 hours. Her annual donor gala, the crown jewel of her social calendar. The night when all of upper society gathered to throw money at her prestigious animal shelter while she basked in their adoration. This year marked her 20th anniversary as executive director. Yes, she wagged dismissively. Though I don't know why you're attending. The ticket price alone. Michael would have wanted us there, I said quietly. That shut her up, as it always did. Her precious son, the surgeon who disappointed her by marrying a teacher, then devastated her by dying and leaving us his life insurance instead of her. What she didn't know was that Michael had left us much more than that. Very well, she sniffed. But do something about their clothes. I can't have them looking like, well, like what we were. Common, ordinary, beneath her. After she clicked away in her Louboutins, I helped the twins change into their gala outfits, designer pieces that would make Regina choke if she knew we owned them. Remember what Daddy used to say? I asked as I straightened Emma's bow. They nodded in unison. Money doesn't make you better, it just makes you louder. That's right, and tonight we're going to be very loud indeed. The twins exchanged knowing looks. They'd seen the papers I'd signed last month, had watched me in late-night meetings with the shelter's board of directors. They might be 7, but they weren't stupid. Will Grandma be mad? Ethan asked, fidgeting with his tie. Grandma will be surprised, I assured him. But sometimes people need surprises to learn important lessons. At the shelter's grand hall 2 hours later, Regina was in her element. She floated between donor groups, accepting compliments about her dedication to animals, her impeccable taste in shelter decor, her 20 years of selfless service. If only they knew how selective that service was. Sarah, darling, she air-kissed my cheeks when we arrived. I'm shocked you could afford the tickets. And the children? Well, they clean up adequately. The twins stood straight-backed, their matching outfits probably worth more than Regina thought I made in a month. She didn't recognize the brands. She'd never expect us to own them. We wouldn't miss it, I smiled. Especially not tonight's announcements. Her perfectly threaded eyebrows drew together. Announcements? The only announcement is my 20-year commemoration speech. Oh, the board didn't tell you about the ownership changes. For a fraction of a second, panic flashed across her Botoxed features. What ownership changes? I'm sure it will all be clear during your speech, I said smoothly. The twins and I have front row seats. Front row? Those are for major donors only. Yes, I agreed. They are. Leaving her sputtering, I guided Emma and Ethan to our table, directly in front of the podium where Regina would soon deliver her speech. The speech she'd spent months preparing, detailing her legacy at the shelter. A legacy that was about to change dramatically. Mrs. Harrison, Thomas, the board secretary, approached with a folder. Everything's prepared for the announcement. Regina, across the room, watched this exchange with growing confusion. She'd never seen Thomas bring me documents before. Never seen me sign anything official. Never imagined I could. Perfect. I took the folder, and the security footage. Queued up and ready. The twins squeezed my hands under the table. They knew what was coming. We discussed it as a family, just as Michael and I had planned it for years before his death. Will we still have to sleep with the litter boxes? Emma whispered. No, sweetheart, I promised. After tonight, we won't have to deal with any kind of litter at all. Regina stepped up to the podium, ready to begin her carefully crafted speech about her dedication to animals. She had no idea she was about to learn that treating children like animals came with consequences. Sometimes the best revenge isn't showing people how powerful you are. It's letting them show everyone who they really are first. Regina tapped the microphone, her diamond rings catching the light as she prepared to address the crowd of elite donors. Behind her, a massive screen was ready to display her carefully curated slideshow of 20 years of achievements. Distinguished guests, she began, her voice dripping with practiced warmth. Welcome to our annual donor gala. as we celebrate 2 decades of my leadership at Silver Paws Shelter. Right on cue, the screen behind her flickered. Instead of her planned slideshow, security footage began playing silently. There she was, forcing her grandchildren into the litter box room, her cruel words captioned for all to see. Regina, focused on her note cards, didn't notice at first, but the gasps from the audience made her turn around. "What is this?" she demanded. "Turn it off immediately." "Please continue, Regina." I stood up. "Tell us more about your dedication to preventing cruelty." The footage changed to other incidents. Regina turning away families who wanted to adopt because they weren't socially suitable, refusing to let children volunteer because they were too common, making my twins eat their meals in the shelter's break room because they weren't refined enough for her office. This is, she sputtered. Child cruelty, I suggested. Social discrimination, or just another day at Silver Paws under your leadership. The room erupted in whispers. Several major donors stood up, their faces dark with anger. "I demand to know who authorized this," Regina's voice cracked. "That would be me." I walked to the podium, the new owner of Silver Paws Shelter. The silence that followed was deafening. Regina's face went through several interesting shades of pale. "Impossible," she breathed. "You're nothing. A teacher Michael married against my wishes. A teacher who helped her husband invest very wisely," I corrected. "While you were breeding cats, Regina, Michael and I were breeding something far more valuable. A plan to make this shelter truly serve all animals and all people." "Michael would never." "Michael did. Every investment, every board appointment, every detail was planned before his death. He just hoped you'd learn compassion on your own first." The twins joined me at the podium, standing tall despite the room's attention. Emma spoke first, her voice clear and strong. "Daddy said helping animals means helping everyone who loves them, not just rich people." Ethan added, "And he said treating kids like animals doesn't make you an animal lover. It makes you a bully." Regina staggered back as if their words were physical blows. The footage behind her showed her latest cruelty with the litter box room, playing on an endless loop. As the new owner, I continued, "I'm making some immediate changes. First, the executive director position is being eliminated. We'll have a qualified animal welfare professional running operations, not a socialite." Several board members nodded approvingly. Second, our adoption policy will be based on the ability to love and care for animals, not social status or bank accounts. "You can't," Regina started. "I can, and I am. Your position here is terminated, effective immediately. However," I paused for effect, "you're welcome to apply for our new volunteer orientation program. It starts with cleaning the cat kennels." The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Some donors actually applauded. "Thomas," I called to the board secretary, "please escort Mrs. Montgomery to her office to collect her personal belongings. The security team will supervise." Regina stood frozen, her perfectly curated world crumbling around her designer heels. "Why?" she whispered. "Why humiliate me like this?" "The same reason you humiliated my children, to teach a lesson about karma." I met her eyes. "The difference is, they didn't deserve their humiliation. You earned yours." One of her society friends tried to come to her defense. "This is outrageous. Regina has given 20 years of discrimination and cruelty." I cut in. "Would you like to see more footage? Perhaps the time she told a little girl her discount store clothes would upset the cats." The woman sat down quickly. Thomas appeared with a box for Regina's belongings. "Your office keys, Mrs. Montgomery." Her hands shook as she removed them from her Gucci purse. "And if I refuse to leave quietly, then the full security footage goes to every news outlet in the city." I smiled. "I'm sure they'd love to hear about your innovative approach to grandparenting." She sank into a chair, 2 decades of iron control finally shattering. "Michael knew, all this time he knew what I was becoming." "He knew," I confirmed. "He just hoped you'd remember that animals show more humanity than humans sometimes, especially humans who think they're above others." Emma tugged at my sleeve. "Can we go home now, Mama? It smells better there than in the litter box room." "Yes, sweetheart, we're going home." I turned to the assembled donors. "Thank you all for coming. The shelter's new mission statement and adoption policies will be distributed shortly. We hope you'll continue supporting our work, our real work, helping animals find loving homes in all kinds of families." Behind us, Regina began gathering her belongings, her perfect world reduced to a cardboard box of cat figurines and framed awards that suddenly meant nothing. Sometimes the best lessons about humanity come from those we treat as less than human. As we left, Ethan looked back at his grandmother. "Would she be okay, Mama?" "That depends on what she learns from this," I answered honestly. Sometimes people need to lose everything to understand what really matters. The transformation of both Silver Paws and Regina Montgomery over the next 6 months surprised everyone, though not in the way anyone expected. At first, Regina retreated to her mansion, emerging only to attend charity events where she played the role of the wronged philanthropist. But when her social circle began distancing themselves, no one wanted to be associated with someone who made children sleep with litter boxes. She found herself truly alone for the first time in her life. The turning point came unexpectedly through her beloved Persian cat, Duchess. "Duchess is sick," she called one night, her voice lacking its usual imperial tone. "The private vet is away and I don't know where else to go." I could have turned her away. Part of me wanted to. Instead, I said, "Bring her to Silver Paws. We have an emergency clinic now." The Regina who arrived at midnight was a far cry from the polished socialite who'd once ruled these halls. Her hair was uncombed, her clothes wrinkled, and her eyes red from crying. Our new head vet, Dr. Chin, didn't care about Regina's designer purse or social status. She cared about Duchess, who needed emergency surgery. "We can save her," Dr. Chin said, "but she'll need round-the-clock care for several weeks." "I'll pay anything," Regina started, reaching for her wallet. "Actually," I interrupted, "we have a new program. People who can't afford treatment can volunteer in exchange for care." "Volunteer?" She looked around the shelter she'd once ruled, now transformed into a warm, welcoming space where families of all backgrounds came to adopt. "You mean, work here? Clean cages, feed animals, whatever's needed." I held her gaze. "Your choice." Something cracked in her perfectly maintained facade. "I'll do it, for Duchess." What followed was what the staff called the great humbling of Regina Montgomery. The woman who once wouldn't touch a cat carrier without gloves spent weeks cleaning cages, changing litter boxes, and doing everything she'd once considered beneath her. "Your grandmother actually smiled today," one of our volunteers told the twins. A real smile, not that scary fake one she used to have. Emma and Ethan, showing more grace than their grandmother ever had, started visiting the shelter after school. They'd sit with the cats, helping socialize the shy ones, while Regina worked nearby. One day, I overheard Emma ask her, "Why did you hate us so much, Grandma?" Regina stopped cleaning, her hands trembling on the cage door. "I didn't hate you, sweetheart. I hated myself. I hated that your father chose a different life than what I'd planned. I hated that he was happy without all the things I thought were important." "Like fancy cats?" Ethan asked. "Like everything fancy." She smiled sadly. "I forgot what really matters. And now?" Emma pressed. "Now I'm learning. From the cats, actually." She gestured around the shelter. "They don't care what you wear or where you live. They just care how you treat them." The real breakthrough came during our spring adoption fair. A family in worn clothes but with huge hearts came looking for a cat. The old Regina would have turned them away. The new Regina spent an hour helping them find the perfect match. "They'll give that cat more love than any social committee ever could," she said afterward, watching the family leave with their new pet. Later that evening, as we were closing up, Regina lingered behind. "I've been thinking," she said quietly, "about my house. It's too big for just me and Duchess." "Oh, yes, I thought maybe I could donate it for a satellite shelter location for families who can't travel downtown." I studied her face, looking for any trace of manipulation. Found none. "That's a generous offer," I said carefully, "but it would mean giving up your social status symbol." "Status symbols don't purr," she replied, stroking Duchess, "and they don't give hugs like my grandchildren." The twins, who'd been pretending not to listen, launched themselves at their grandmother. For the first time ever, she hugged them back without worrying about wrinkles in her clothes. "Does this mean we can come visit the cats at your house?" Ethan asked. "Better," Regina smiled. "It means you can come visit your grandmother, who happens to help cats. If that's all right." She looked at me uncertainly. I nodded, watching 2 decades of barriers crumble. "I think that's more than all right." As we locked up that night, Emma observed. Daddy would be happy now, wouldn't he? Yes, I agreed, watching Regina walk to her car with a cat carrier in one hand and her designer purse holding cat food in the other. Sometimes people need to lose their crown to find their heart. The shelter's lights dimmed behind us. But for once, the future looked brighter than ever. The summer heat shimmered over the pristine grounds of Meadowbrook Equestrian Club as my son Matthew's sobs echoed across the private stables. My mother-in-law, Evelyn Blackwood, stood watching with her arms crossed, a satisfied smirk playing on her expertly Botoxed face. Perhaps now you'll learn to hold your fork properly, she said, adjusting her Hermes scarf. Really, Sarah, what do you teach the boy at home? Eating with his left hand like a common sable boy. Matthew, still in his riding clothes, looked at his sandwich floating in a horse trough. His regular lunch spot at the club's terrace had been suddenly reserved, according to his grandmother, and she'd led him here instead. He's left-handed, I said through clenched teeth, and 8 years old. No grandson of mine will eat like a peasant, Evelyn declared. James would be mortified to see his son's table manners. Thank goodness he's not here to witness this embarrassment. My late husband would indeed be mortified, but not by our son's manners. The mention of James made my blood boil hotter than the August sun beating down on us. Get your lunch, Matthew, I said quietly, walking toward him. But Mama. No, Evelyn interrupted. Let him eat from where I've served him. The horses don't mind sharing. Her laugh tinkled like broken glass. Besides, the club's dining room has standards. What Evelyn didn't know was that the club's standards were about to change dramatically. The papers had been signed last week, though the announcement wouldn't be made until tonight's annual member gala. James and I had been planning this for years before his accident, quietly buying up shares through various holding companies. Matthew, I called again, more firmly this time. Come here. He ran to me, his riding boots kicking up dust, tears streaming down his face. Behind us, I could hear the stable hands muttering in disapproval. They'd witnessed everything. Mrs. Blackwood, Roberto, the head groom, stepped forward. The trough was just cleaned for the horses. Then it should be clean enough for a boy who can't remember which fork to use, Evelyn snapped. Really, Sarah, this is why I told James marrying the riding instructor was a mistake. No breeding at all. I held Matthew closer, feeling him tremble. No breeding? Tell me, Evelyn, what does good breeding look like? Forcing a child to eat from a horse trough. Sometimes harsh lessons are necessary. When I was social chair of this club 20 years ago. You've mentioned that several hundred times. Her eyes narrowed. Watch yourself, Sarah. Your membership here hangs by a thread. The only reason you're still allowed is because of James's name, and even that might not be enough after today's display. If she only knew. Come on, Matthew, I said, steering him toward our car. We're leaving. Running away again? Evelyn called after us. Do remember I expect both of you at tonight's gala. It's my 20th anniversary as social chair, and the entire board will be there. Try to avoid embarrassing the family name further. I turned back, unable to resist. Oh, we wouldn't miss your speech for the world. In the car, Matthew's tears had dried, replaced by quiet anger. Why does Grandma hate us, Mama? She doesn't hate us, sweetheart. She hates herself, and we're convenient targets. I started the engine, catching Roberto's eye as he gave me a subtle thumbs up. The security cameras in the stable had caught everything, but things are about to change. Because of the papers you signed, the ones in Daddy's study. Smart boy, he'd seen me reviewing the contracts last week. That's right, remember how Daddy used to say that money doesn't make you better than anyone else? Matthew nodded. He said it's what you do with it that matters. Exactly, and tonight, we're going to show Grandma exactly what we've done with it. Back at home, our real home, not the modest apartment Evelyn thought we lived in. I helped Matthew change for the gala. The house was hidden under a different name, another part of James's careful planning. He'd known his mother too well, known she'd try to take everything from us if given the chance. Do I have to wear the bow tie? Matthew fidgeted with the silk at his neck. Just for a little while, I promised, straightening it. Until after Grandma's speech. Will she make me eat with the horses again? No, baby. After tonight, Grandma won't be making anyone do anything at Meadowbrook ever again. As we dressed, I thought about James's warnings before his accident. My mother will never accept you properly, he'd said. So we'll have to change the game entirely. And we had. Every investment, every careful purchase of club shares through proxy companies, every detailed plan had led to this moment. Evelyn thought she was untouchable as the social chair of Meadowbrook, a position she held with an iron grip for 2 decades. Tonight, she would learn that her precious social status rested on ground as unstable as her grandson's floating sandwich. I checked my phone, new messages from the board members who'd been quietly appointed last week. Everything was in place. In 6 hours, Evelyn would stand up to give her anniversary speech, expecting another triumph in her long reign over Meadowbrook's social scene. Instead, she faced something entirely different. "Ready?" I asked Matthew, who now looked every inch the young gentleman in his suit. He squared his small shoulders, a gesture so like his father's it made my heart ache. "Ready, Mama. Can I use any fork I want at dinner?" I smiled, grabbing my clutch. "Tonight, sweetheart, you can eat with both hands if you want to." The Meadowbrook Equestrian Club's grand ballroom sparkled with crystal chandeliers and old money. Evelyn held court near the entrance, greeting guests with her practiced social smile while subtly critiquing their attire, lineage, or both. When we arrived, her smile flickered like a faulty light bulb. "Sarah, darling," she air-kissed my cheeks. "That dress is interesting. Last season's McQueen, isn't it?" Her own outfit probably cost more than what she assumed was my monthly salary. "Hello, grandmother," Matthew said quietly, his perfect posture a shield. "Ah, Matthew, I trust you've learned something about proper dining etiquette today." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Before he could respond, Roberto appeared at my elbow. "Mrs. Harrison, the board requests your presence before the speech." Something about the new documentation. Evelyn's perfectly plucked eyebrows drew together. "Documentation? What documentation?" "I'm sure it's nothing," I said smoothly. "Just some routine ownership updates." "Ownership updates?" She grabbed my arm as I turned away. "What are you talking about?" I carefully removed her manicured fingers from my sleeve. "You'll find out during your speech, Evelyn, along with everyone else." Leaving her sputtering, I guided Matthew to our table, front and center, where the new owner's family belonged. The place cards, which Evelyn had personally arranged, had originally seated us near the kitchen doors. Funny how things change. Throughout dinner, I watched Evelyn make increasingly frantic trips between board members, her face growing more pinched with each conversation. No one would give her straight answers about the ownership changes. They'd all signed NDAs last week. Finally, it was time for her speech. She approached the podium like a queen ascending her throne, though I noticed her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted the microphone. "Distinguished members, honored guests," she began, her voice carrying that artificial warmth she perfected over 20 years. "As your social chair, it has been my privilege to maintain Meadowbrook's impeccable standards." Right on cue, the screens behind her flickered to life. Security footage from the stable began playing silently. Evelyn, focused on her note cards, didn't notice at first, but the gasps from the audience made her turn around. There she was in high-definition clarity, forcing her grandson to eat from a horse trough. "Turn that off," she commanded, but the tech staff, now my staff, didn't move. "Is something wrong, Evelyn?" I stood, letting my voice carry. "Please continue telling us about Meadowbrook's impeccable standards." The footage changed to other incidents, Evelyn berating staff members, mocking less wealthy members behind their backs, orchestrating social humiliations as if directing a theater production. "This is outrageous," she sputtered. "I demand to know who authorized this." "That would be me." I walked to the podium, the new owner of Meadowbrook Equestrian Club. The ballroom erupted in whispers. Evelyn's face went from red to white faster than a traffic light. "Impossible," she breathed. "You're nothing." A riding instructor James married against my wishes. A riding instructor who helped her husband build one of the most successful investment portfolios in the state, I corrected. While you were planning seating charts, Evelyn, James, and I were planning something much bigger. James would never. James did. Every share purchase, every proxy company, every detail was planned before his accident. He knew exactly who you were, Evelyn. He just loved you enough to hope you change on your own. Matthew appeared at my side, standing tall despite the room's attention. "Daddy said people who are truly special don't need to make others feel small." Evelyn staggered back as if physically struck by his words. The footage behind her showed her latest cruelty in the stable, playing on an endless loop. As the new owner, I continued, I'm making some changes. First, the social chair position is being eliminated. We'll have a democratically elected member committee instead. More whispers, some approving nods. Second, any form of discrimination or harassment will result in immediate membership termination. No exceptions. You can't. Evelyn started. I can, and I am. Your membership is currently under review, pending completion of both an ethics course and 500 hours of community service at the local public stables. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Several people actually applauded. And finally, I gestured to Matthew. My son will continue to eat with whichever hand he prefers. Anyone who has a problem with that can join Evelyn in mucking out stalls. The ballroom sat in stunned silence for a moment before erupting in conversation. Evelyn stood frozen, her carefully constructed world crumbling around her designer heels. Why? She whispered as I passed her. Why humiliate me like this? The same reason we humiliated an 8-year-old boy. To teach a lesson about standards. I paused. The difference is your lesson was about cruelty. Mine is about consequences. Roberto appeared with a folder. The new membership agreement, Mrs. Blackwood. You'll need to sign it tonight if you want to retain any club privileges. Evelyn's hands shook as she took the papers. And if I refuse? Then you can explain to your social circle why you're no longer welcome at Meadowbrook. I smiled. I'm sure they'd love to hear about your innovative approach to children's table manners. She sank into a chair, decades of iron control finally rusting away. James knew. All this time, he knew what I was. He knew, I confirmed. He just hoped you'd learn compassion before we had to teach it to you. As I walked away, Matthew slipped his hand into mine. Can we get ice cream, Mama? With both hands? I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in years. Yes, sweetheart. And tomorrow, we'll have lunch on the terrace. All of us, including the stable hands. Behind us, Evelyn began to sign her new membership agreement, her perfect world reduced to writing lines like a chastised schoolgirl. I will not abuse my position. I will treat others with respect. Sometimes the best lessons are learned in unexpected places, even at a horse trough. The transformation of both Meadowbrook and Evelyn Blackwood over the next few months surprised everyone, including me. Like a thoroughbred forced to learn a new gait, Evelyn stumbled at first but gradually found her footing in this new reality. Her first day of community service at the public stables was nothing short of revolutionary. The woman who once wouldn't touch a rake unless it was gold-plated spent 8 hours mucking stalls, her designer clothes replaced by workwear she'd probably never imagined wearing. Your mother-in-law actually apologized to me today, Roberto reported one evening. Nearly fell off my horse when I heard it. She said she never realized how much work we do. The ethics course proved even more transformative. The instructor, a retired judge who specialized in rehabilitation, gave me weekly updates. She asked something interesting today, he said during one session. She wanted to know if her own mother's obsession with social status had damaged her ability to love properly. I told her recognition is the first step toward change. The real breakthrough came during Matthew's birthday party at the club. We'd invited children from both the public stables where Evelyn volunteered and Meadowbrook's junior riders. When one of her former social circle made a snide comment about the mixed company, Evelyn surprised everyone. These children, she said clearly, are here because they love horses and my grandson. If you can't see past social boundaries, perhaps you should examine why that threatens you so much. The woman left in a huff. Evelyn caught my eye across the room and gave a small nod. Later, as she helped serve cake to all the children, using actual plates, not troughs, she pulled me aside. I've been thinking about my position here at the club, she said quietly. Oh? Yes, I'd like to start a scholarship program for talented riders who can't afford membership. If you approve, of course. I studied her face, looking for any trace of manipulation. I found none. I think that's an excellent idea, I said. Why don't you work with Roberto to develop the criteria? The flash of genuine pleasure in her eyes told me more than any words could. Matthew, displaying his father's insight, noticed the change too. Grain was different now. He'd observed one day while we watched her teaching a group of scholarship kids about proper horse care. She smiles with her eyes, not just her mouth. He was right. The artificial warmth had been replaced by something genuine, if still somewhat uncertain. The final test came during the club's year-end gala. Evelyn was scheduled to speak again, not as social chair, but as the head of the new scholarship committee. "When I stood here last year," she began, her voice lacking its former artificial polish, "I thought I knew what made Meadowbrook special. I thought it was about exclusivity, about keeping people out." She paused, looking at Matthew. "I was wrong." The room fell silent. "My grandson taught me that true class isn't about which fork you use or which hand you eat with. It's about how you treat people when you think no one's watching. Or," she smiled ruefully, "when everyone's watching through security cameras." Scattered laughter rippled through the audience. "This past year has been educational," she continued. "I learned that mucking out stalls is harder than managing social calendars. That children from all backgrounds can share the same love for horses. And that sometimes the person who needs the most help finding their humanity might be the one pretending they have it all figured out." She announced the scholarship program, her voice growing stronger as she outlined plans to make Meadowbrook more inclusive while maintaining its standards of excellence, real standards, not artificial social barriers. Afterward, she joined us at our table, sitting next to Matthew without a single comment about his left-handed fork use. "You know," she said quietly, "James would be proud of what you've done here." "What we've done," I corrected. "Change only works if everyone participates." Matthew, finishing his dessert with both hands just because he could, looked up at his grandmother. "Does this mean you're not mad at us anymore?" Evelyn's carefully maintained composure cracked slightly. "No, darling. I'm not mad. I'm grateful. Sometimes we need to eat humble pie to remember our humanity." "Or eat from a trough?" he asked innocently. She flinched but nodded. "Yes, sometimes we need to experience what we put others through to understand why it was wrong." As we left that night, I overheard one of the older members comment, "Evelyn Blackwood voluntarily giving up power. Never thought I'd see the day." I smiled, watching her help Matthew adjust his riding helmet for an evening ride. "Sometimes," I murmured, "the best way to gain power is to stop desperately clinging to it." The setting sun cast long shadows across Meadowbrook's grounds, but for once, they were shadows of progress, not privilege. I still remember the sound of my son Oliver's tears hitting that silver dog bowl. The way my mother-in-law Victoria's laughter echoed through her penthouse apartment as she watched him, trembling and thirsty after playing in the summer heat. "Well, go on," she urged, her perfectly manicured hand gesturing to where her prize poodle, Bonaparte, usually drank. "That's more suitable for your background. We can't risk you breaking my Waterford crystal, can we?" I stood in the doorway, my hands clenched into fists, watching my 6-year-old look between the dog bowl and his grandmother. My late husband Thomas had always handled his mother's elitism with quiet dignity, but he wasn't here anymore to shield our son from her cruelty. "Mama?" Oliver's voice quivered, his dark eyes seeking permission, validation, anything to make sense of this humiliation. "Actually," I stepped forward, my heels clicking against the marble floor, "we'll be leaving." Victoria's lips curled into a familiar sneer. "Oh, and where will you go?" "That shabby little apartment you can barely afford. At least here, the boy can see how real people live." "Real people?" I echoed, helping Oliver up from the floor. "Is that what you call someone who makes a child drink from a dog bowl?" "Please," she waved dismissively. "You should be grateful I even allow you both in this building. After Thomas's unfortunate investment decisions before his accident, you're hardly the caliber of resident we maintain here at the Wellington." If she only knew. I gathered our things while Victoria continued her usual tirade about how her son should have married someone more suitable instead of his immigrant secretary, how Oliver would never fit into her social circle with his common ways, how generous she was to even acknowledge us after Thomas's death left us nearly penniless. Nearly. What Victoria didn't know, what no one knew, was that Thomas and I had been playing a long game. While she thought I was just his secretary turned wife, I had been his silent investment partner for years. Every unfortunate investment decision she mocked was actually a carefully planned move in a much larger strategy. "Remember, Oliver," Victoria called as we headed for the door. "Next time bring your own cup. Bonaparte's bowl is actually quite expensive." I paused, turning back to face her. "How much does this building mean to you, Victoria?" She blinked, thrown by the sudden change in topic. "The Wellington? It's only the most prestigious address in the city. Not that you understand property values. And your apartment? The one Thomas helped you secure. What about it? Her perfectly threaded eyebrows drew together. Just curious about your lease terms, I said mildly. They're up for review soon, aren't they? My lease is ironclad, she scoffed. I'm a founding resident. The owner would never. The owner might surprise you, I cut in, watching her face. Things change. Properties get sold. New management comes in. For just a moment, uncertainty flickered across her features. What are you implying? Nothing at all. I smiled, squeezing Oliver's hand. Just making conversation about property values. Since I don't understand them and all. As we rode the elevator down, Oliver looked up at me. Mama, why does Grandma hate us? She doesn't hate us, sweetheart. I smoothed his hair. She hates herself and we're just convenient targets. But don't worry, things are about to change. In the lobby, Marcus, the building manager, caught my eye. A slight nod confirmed what I already knew. The papers had been filed. The Wellington was officially mine, purchased through a series of shell companies and offshore accounts that Thomas and I had set up years ago. Victoria's precious penthouse apartment, the lease she thought was ironclad, was about to get very interesting. Mrs. Torres, Marcus called softly as we passed. The documents you requested are ready for review. Thank you, Marcus, I replied. And the other matter. All security footage from the penthouse has been archived, as requested. Victoria had no idea that her exclusive building had top-of-the-line security cameras in every common area, including her precious private hallway. Every snide comment, every humiliation she'd inflicted on Oliver and me over the past year was documented. Mama? Oliver tugged at my hand as we reached our car. Can we get ice cream? Of course, baby. I helped him into his car seat, noticing how he was still eyeing the water bottle in his cup holder like it might turn into a dog bowl. And tomorrow, we're going to move into a new apartment. Where? Right here at the Wellington. I smiled, watching his eyes widen. In fact, we're taking the whole east wing of the 10th floor. But Grandma said we're not good enough. Grandma's about to learn some very important lessons about what good enough really means. I started the car, catching a glimpse of Victoria watching us from her window. And her first lesson starts tomorrow at 9 a.m. sharp. As we pulled away from the Wellington, I couldn't help but smile. Victoria had always said I didn't understand property values. She was about to learn just how wrong she was, one lease violation at a time. At precisely 9 a.m. the next morning, Victoria received her first notification from the building's new management company. I watched through the security feed as she opened the formal envelope over her morning coffee. Immediate lease review required, violations reported. Her perfectly composed face crumpled as she read further. The letter detailed every instance of harassment caught on camera over the past year, including yesterday's dog bowl incident. Each violation was time-stamped, documented, and accompanied by still photos. Her phone rang exactly 3 times before she answered. Marcus, she barked into the receiver. What is the meaning of this? My lease is guaranteed by the original owner. The ownership has changed, Mrs. Montgomery, Marcus replied smoothly, and the new owner is very concerned about reports of resident harassment. Harassment? That's absurd. I demand to speak with the new owner immediately. Of course, the owner will meet with you at 11 a.m. penthouse inspection to follow. Inspection? Her voice rose an octave. No one inspects my penthouse. It's in the lease terms you signed, Mrs. Montgomery. Annual inspections are mandatory, though the previous owner never enforced them. I could practically hear her teeth grinding through the security feed. Victoria had always treated the Wellington like her personal kingdom, with her penthouse as her castle. The thought of anyone inspecting her domain was probably giving her hives. At 10:45, I walked into the Wellington's lobby with Oliver, both of us impeccably dressed. The residents who usually ignored us suddenly couldn't look away. Word of new ownership had spread fast, and everyone was curious about the mysterious buyer. Mrs. Torres, Marcus greeted us formally, loud enough for everyone to hear. Your new residence is ready. Shall we do the final walkthrough of the East Wing before your meeting? The elderly couple waiting for the elevator nearly gave themselves whiplash turning to stare at us. Our new apartment was actually 5 combined units, transformed into a stunning living space that made Victoria's penthouse look modest. Oliver ran from room to room, his eyes wide with wonder. Mama, look. My room has a telescope. Perfect for stargazing, sweetheart, I smiled. Why don't you stay here with Miss Sarah while I handle some business? I nodded to his new nanny, a warm-hearted woman who had already set up art supplies in his study area. At exactly 11 a.m., I walked into the building's conference room where Victoria was waiting. Her face went through several interesting colors when she saw me. "What are you doing here?" she demanded. "I'm waiting for the owner." "You're looking at her," I said, sitting down across from her. Surprised? "This is impossible," she whispered. "You're nothing. You have nothing." Actually, I slid a folder across the table. "I have everything, including video evidence of you forcing my son to drink from a dog bowl." Her hands shook as she opened the folder. Inside were dozens of photos. Every snide comment, every orchestrated humiliation she'd subjected us to over the past year, documented in high-resolution color. "You can't," she started. "Can't what?" "Evict you? Actually, I can. Your lease has a moral conduct clause. The previous owner never enforced it, but I'm not the previous owner. Thomas would never allow this." "Thomas," I said quietly, "helped set this up. Every bad investment you mocked him for was part of our plan. We were building something together, Victoria. Something bigger than your petty prejudices." She sat back, deflated. "What do you want?" "First, you're going to write a formal apology to Oliver. Then you're going to read it in front of the Residents Association at their next meeting." "You can't be serious." "Oh, I am. And after that, you're going to take sensitivity training courses. Weekly. If you want to keep your precious penthouse, you'll need to prove you can behave like a decent human being." "And if I refuse?" I smiled, gathering my papers. "Then you can explain to your social circle why you're being evicted from the Wellington. I'm sure they'd love to see the video of you forcing a 6-year-old to drink from a dog bowl." Victoria's face had lost all color. "You've been planning this all along." "No, Victoria, you did this to yourself. I just bought the building that had the best security cameras." As I stood to leave, she called out, "Where will you live?" "The East Wing, 10th floor. Oliver's room has a lovely telescope. He can wave to Bonaparte from there, at eye level." The realization that we would be residents, prestigious ones at that, seemed to finally break something in her carefully maintained facade. "I could have been a real grandmother to him," she whispered, more to herself than to me. "Yes," I agreed, "you could have. Instead, you chose to be cruel to a child who only wanted your love. Now you get to live with those consequences." As I walked out, I heard her muffled sobs. Part of me felt a twinge of sympathy, but then I remembered Oliver's tears hitting that silver dog bowl. Some lessons have to be learned the hard way. The next month at the Wellington brought changes no one could have predicted. Victoria, faced with either compliance or eviction, chose an unexpected third option: growth. Her first public apology to Oliver at the Residents Association meeting was stilted and clearly rehearsed, but the shame in her eyes was real, especially when the other residents, now aware of her behavior, treated her with the same cold disdain she'd shown others for years. "I'm sorry," she'd said, her voice trembling. "I forgot what it means to be a grandmother. I forgot what it means to be human." Oliver, showing more grace than I could have at his age, had simply hugged her and said, "It's okay, Grandma. Everyone makes mistakes. That's what Mama says." That hug broke something in Victoria's carefully constructed walls. Maybe it was the unconditional forgiveness children offer so freely, or maybe it was finally seeing herself through others' eyes. Whatever the cause, the change began that day. She started her sensitivity training without further complaint. Her instructor, a no-nonsense former judge, reported that Victoria was actually trying, really trying. "Your mother-in-law asked me something interesting today," the instructor told me over coffee. She wanted to know if her own mother's cruelty justified her behavior toward Oliver. I told her that understanding the source of our pain doesn't excuse passing it on. One morning, about 6 weeks after our takeover, Victoria knocked on our door. She was holding Bonaparte's silver water bowl. "I want to get rid of this," she said quietly, "and I'd like to buy Oliver a telescope for his room. A better one, if that's allowed." I studied her face, searching for any trace of manipulation. I found none. "He'd like that," I finally said, "but you'll have to ask him yourself." Watching Victoria navigate a real relationship with her grandson was like watching someone learn to walk again after an injury. There were stumbles, hesitations, and occasional falls back into old patterns. But she kept trying. The building's social dynamics shifted too. Other residents, following their new owner's lead, began breaking down the artificial barriers that had divided the elite from the common folk. The Wellington staff found themselves invited to events they used to serve at. Children from different backgrounds played together in the garden. "You've changed everything," Marcus commented one evening. "And not just the building." He was right, but the biggest change came 3 months after our move, during Oliver's 7th birthday party. Victoria arrived early, helping with decorations. She didn't comment on the mix of guests. Children from Oliver's public school alongside the offspring of millionaires. Instead, she worked quietly, hanging streamers with the same care she once reserved for arranging her precious art collection. During the party, one of her social circle friends made a snide comment about the diverse guest list. "Those children," Victoria said clearly, loudly enough for everyone to hear, "are my grandson's friends. And if you can't respect that, you can leave through the service entrance since you're so fond of separation." The woman left, sputtering. Victoria caught my eye across the room and gave a small nod. Later that night, after the party, she helped clean up, despite having never cleaned anything in her life before. "I've been thinking," she said, carefully wrapping leftover cake, "about selling the penthouse." "Oh, yes, it's too big for just me and Bonaparte." And she hesitated. "I thought I might look at one of the regular floors, where the real people live." I hid my smile. "The east wing has an opening, 10th floor. Next to you." She looked uncertain. Would you be comfortable with that?" "That depends," I said. "Can you promise never to serve drinks in dog bowls?" Her face fell for a moment before she caught my slight smile. "I deserve that. I'll deserve it for a long time." "Yes," I agreed. "But deserving something and holding onto it are different things. Oliver's teaching me that." Victoria glanced toward the window where Oliver was using his new telescope, her gift, to stare at the stars. "He's a better person than I am," she said softly. "He's a child," I corrected, "pure and untainted by prejudice. Our job is to keep him that way." "Our job?" She looked at me hopefully. "Yes, our job. Family is family, Victoria, even when they drink from the wrong cups." She laughed then, a real laugh, not her usual social titter. "I suppose I needed someone to buy my building to teach me that." "No," I said, gathering my coat, ready to head home. "You just needed someone to show you that true class has nothing to do with crystal glasses or silver dog bowls. It's about how you treat people when no one's watching. Or," she smiled ruefully, "when everyone's watching through security cameras." "That too," I agreed. "That too."